Welcome in, everyone. It is so good to have you here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Whether you are commuting, making dinner, or, just taking a break to learn something new, we're thrilled you're joining us for today's deep dive.
Absolutely.
Now, normally, you know the drill. We usually take a stack of dense academic papers, complex research reports, or hefty books and distill them down into the essential takeaways. But today, our mission is entirely different.
It really is a massive pivot.
We are looking at a single, incredibly fascinating digital artifact. We are examining a Wikipedia disambiguation page, specifically the page for the exact phrase, "over the edge."
It's a brilliant departure from our usual source material. I mean, when you think about it, a disambiguation page exists to categorize information.
Right.
It's there to help users find exactly what they're looking for when titles collide. It essentially organizes the internet's chaos.
It's like the internet's traffic cop.
Exactly. And the specific categories we're going to explore today, film and television, books and literature, music, and a wonderfully eclectic other uses section. They lay out this fascinating map of human creativity.
I have to admit, when I first looked at this, I was pretty skeptical.
I don't blame you.
A disambiguation page, really. They just tell you where to click if you typed in the wrong search term. But staring at this list, you start to realize this simple navigational page acts as a cultural fingerprint.
It does.
It reveals just how deeply this one specific idiom, this idea of pushing boundaries, has permeated global media over the decades. Okay, let's unpack this.
The best place to start seeing that fingerprint is in the film and television category.
Oh, definitely.
It provides an immediate sense of the timeline we are working with here. The earliest chronological entry provided on this entire list sits right here. It is a drama film from 1979 called Over the Edge, starring Matt Dillon.
That immediately caught my eye. We're talking about the late 70s.
Right, an era completely defined by gritty cinema.
Gritty cinema, coming-of-age stories, and just a general sense of societal disillusionment. The title in that specific context implies a loss of innocence, or a community reaching a breaking point. It feels incredibly heavy.
It anchors the phrase in grounded, human drama. But then, if you look at the rest of the category, the tone completely shifts.
It's a wild turn.
The sheer volume of professional wrestling entries here is impossible to ignore. We see a massive presence from the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF.
It's almost jarring to go from a 1970s teen drama straight into the squared circle, but they didn't just use it once.
No, they didn't. Look at the specific events listed. You have a 1998 pay-per-view event specifically titled Over the Edge.
In your house type.
Then the very next year, they drop the subtitle and hold the 1999 pay-per-view simply titled Over the Edge. The source material even lists a broader WWF Over the Edge professional wrestling pay-per-view event series.
So it was an entire franchise for them.
Yes. What's fascinating here is the repetition and evolution of the title within the WWF franchise. They saw enough value in that specific combination of words to build an entire brand identity around it during one of their most popular eras.
But is it really that deep, or is it just a convenient marketing cliche? I mean, it's the late 90s. Everything was trying to be extreme or edgy.
That is a fair critique of 90s marketing. But in the context of professional wrestling, the phrase operates on two levels. It isn't just a metaphor for aggressive attitude.
It's a literal physical promise to the audience.
Exactly. The performers are frequently throwing themselves over the physical edge of the ring. It perfectly encapsulates high-stakes physical combat while feeding into that 90s cultural obsession with extreme limits.
That makes sense. It's the physical and the psychological wrapped into one. And speaking of the psychological, right below the WWF entries, there's a pivot to animation.
Yes.
The list includes an episode of the new Batman Adventures titled Over the Edge,
which is arguably one of the darkest episodes of that entire animated run. Batman is a character who constantly walks a moral tightrope anyway, giving an episode that title signals to the viewer that the familiar boundaries of Gotham City are about to be broken.
I want you, the listener, to just pause and consider that for a second. Think about how a single four-word phrase perfectly encapsulates three wildly different visual experiences.
It's crazy when you lay it out like that.
You've got the grounded, tense drama of a 70s Matt Dillon film. You have the spectacular, high-stakes, sweaty combat of 90s WWF pay-per-views. And you have the animated, stylized, psychological adventures of Batman.
All of them leaning on the exact same idiom to signal to their audience that things are about to get incredibly intense.
Right.
It suggests that the concept of an edge is universally understood, regardless of the visual medium or the target demographic. It's a highly versatile, incredibly efficient shorthand for conflict.
So we see how Hollywood and television producers rely on it, but let's see how it holds up on the bookshelf. Moving into the books and literature category, the variety doesn't slow down at all.
The publishing world clearly leans on this phrase just as heavily.
Let's look at the specific works listed. First, we have an anthology edited by August Derleth called Over the Edge.
A classic.
Then you have a novel by Jonathan Kellerman. It's not just fiction either. The list includes a 2002 nonfiction book by Greg Child.
And to round out the visual literature, we have a Marvel comic book series that ran from 1995 to 1996, also called Over the Edge.
I'd argue that the application here is even more deliberate than in film. Think about the specific genres represented.
August Derleth is famous for his work in horror and the macabre. Jonathan Kellerman writes intense psychological thrillers.
Greg Child writes about mountaineering, a subject where the edge is a literal matter of life and death.
In a mid-90s Marvel comic series, that was an era in the comic industry defined by desperate attempts to create darker, grittier anti-heroes.
So they are all using it to promise a very specific kind of anxiety.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, whether it is a curated anthology by August Derleth, a nonfiction exploration by Greg Child in 2002, a psychological thriller from Jonathan Kellerman, or a mid-90s Marvel comic, the phrase "over the edge" clearly serves as an irresistible literary hook.
It really is.
It is explicitly meant to imply a thrill, a point of no return, or a descent into the unknown. An author only has a few words on a cover to convince you to open their book. These 4 words do the heavy lifting of entire marketing campaigns.
It is a promise that you are going to be taken out of your comfort zone. But if you think the literary world got a lot of mileage out of this phrase, wait until we look at the audio landscape.
Oh, absolutely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the music category.
This is by far the most extensive section of our source material. The sheer volume of musical artists who felt this phrase represented their work is staggering.
Let's break it down, starting with the full albums that claim the title Over the Edge. We kick things off in 1983 with an album by the Wipers.
Then, just 5 years later in 1988, the band Hurricane releases their own album called Over the Edge.
And jumping ahead, we see an album by Mickey Thomas released in 2004 bearing the same name.
3 completely distinct albums spanning 3 different decades. The 80s, the 90s, the 2000s.
But the albums are really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, the list of individual tracks gives us a much more granular look at the journey of this phrase.
The chronological journey of these songs is what really caught my attention. The earliest song listed takes us back to the dawn of the 1980s. Status Quo released a track titled Over the Edge on their 1980 album, Just Supposin'.
And from there, the phrase seems to get passed around the hard rock and metal scene for the next 20 years. We jump to 1991, where LA Guns features a song with the title on their album Hollywood Vampires.
I mean, just listen to the context clues in these titles. Hollywood Vampires. You can practically hear the leather jackets and the distorted guitars.
That aggressive, rebellious tone continues into 1993 with the band The Almighty, who included a track by the same name on their album Power Trippin'.
Power tripping.
Right. And rounding out the turn of the century, we have the stoner rock band Fu Manchu, who released their own song, Over the Edge, on the 2000 album King of the Road.
Looking at that specific 20-year run, Status Quo in 1980, LA Guns and the Almighty in the 90s, Fu Manchu in 2000, it almost feels like an exclusive club for guys with loud guitars and bad attitudes.
It does.
It makes sense, right? Rock and roll has always been about pushing limits.
It makes total sense, which is why the tail end of this musical timeline is so surprising. The source material brings us right up to the modern era, but the genres completely fracture.
How so?
In 2013, we see a track by Sarah Jaros, whose work is deeply rooted in Americana and bluegrass. And then, jumping to 2017, we have a track by Kaizo and Gammer, which is pure, high-energy electronic dance music.
That is a massive sonic pivot. You go from the distorted guitars of the 90s to an acoustic mandolin in 2013, and then straight into a massive EDM bass drop in 2017.
This raises an important question. How can a single phrase be just as relevant to a 1980s rock band like Status Quo as it is to a 2017 electronic collaboration between Kaizo and Gammer, or a 2013 acoustic piece by Sarah Jaros?
What is the common denominator?
I would argue that the edge itself is relative to the medium. To a hard rock band in the 80s or 90s, the edge might be a lifestyle of excess, or playing as loud and fast as humanly possible.
But to an EDM artist in 2017, the edge might be an intense structural drop in the music, a digital soundscape pushing the absolute limits of volume and distortion.
And for an Americana artist, the edge might be an incredibly vulnerable emotional boundary. The container completely changes, but the core implication remains intact. Music is inherently about tension and release.
Naming a song over the edge tells the listener exactly where the tension is heading. It is going to break. We have covered the screen, the written word, and an entire jukebox of musical eras. But we need to look at the other uses category on this page, because this is where the phrase escapes traditional passive media altogether.
It is a wonderfully eclectic mix. When you move away from movies and music, you see the interactive and truly global reach of the concept.
Let's look at the three incredibly unique entries here. First, Over the Edge is the title of a role-playing game. Now, regardless of the specific mechanics of that game, the title alone is a brilliant primer for the player.
You are stepping out of your own reality, taking on a new persona, and walking into an unfamiliar world. It captures the visceral nature of leaving your own identity behind.
Then, the list provides an entry for an entirely different auditory experience, a radio program created by Don Joyce. Why do you think a radio host would choose that title over something more traditional?
Radio is a medium that historically relies heavily on the listener's imagination. Naming a program Over the Edge suggests experimental audio. It implies culture jamming, tape looping, or pushing the boundaries of what a traditional broadcast is supposed to sound like.
It is a warning label for the listener's ears.
Typically said.
And finally, the most surprising entry on the entire page. The phrase reaches all the way to a theater company in Zimbabwe. I really want you, the listener, to visualize the geographical and cultural leap we've just made by scrolling down a single Wikipedia page.
It's massive.
We started with a Matt Dillon movie in Hollywood. We traveled through WWF wrestling arenas across America. We flipped through the pages of Marvel comic books. We listened to 80s rock bands and modern EDM producers. And now we are looking at a theatrical stage in Zimbabwe.
It highlights a profound reality about human expression. A Zimbabwean theater company exploring the dramatic arts finds the exact same value in the concept of the edge as a mid-90s comic book writer or a 1980s rock band.
The human experience, regardless of geography, culture, or medium, includes a deep fascination with limits.
It really makes you realize how interconnected these creative impulses are. But before we wrap up our analysis of this page, there is one final section that we have to talk about.
The See Also section.
The linguistic cousins. This section is essentially the internet's safety net, elegant in its utility. It guides lost users who might be slightly off in their search, but it also provides a fascinating look at how a core concept mutates.
The variations they list here completely change the temperature of the phrase.
We do. Look at the subtle differences. The list includes on the edge.
That is a crucial distinction. Being on the edge implies you are still safe, but in extreme danger. You are balancing. Being over the edge means you've already fallen. The tension has already broken.
Then there is simply the one edge. They also include the acronym OTE. And finally, the edge. Each link is a subtle variation, a different flavor of the same core concept of boundaries. And then, of course, there's the pop culture collision.
Yes, over the hedge. Leading to the comic strip and its related media, it is just one letter off, but a simple typo takes you from high-stakes human drama and psychological thrillers to a turtle and a raccoon stealing snacks in suburbia.
It is the perfect palate cleanser for this intense list.
It really is.
It's a great reminder of how fragile language can be. One keystroke changes the entire cultural meaning.
So what does this all mean? We have taken a journey today that was sparked by a single utilitarian web page. A page most people would click away from in 2 seconds.
We started in 1979 with a dramatic Matt Dillon film, representing the grit of that era.
We got swept up in the aggressive marketing and physical toll of 90s WWF pay-per-view events.
We saw authors, nonfiction mountaineers, and Marvel comic artists use the phrase to hook their readers with the promise of anxiety.
We tracked a massive musical timeline from a 1980s status quo rock album through the distorted guitars of LA Guns all the way to a 2017 EDM song by Kaizo and Gammer.
We even looked at surreal role-playing games, experimental radio by Don Joyce, and the global reach of a theater company in Zimbabwe.
When you step back and look at all of these seemingly disconnected media artifacts together, the true insight becomes incredibly clear.
This isn't just a list of titles sharing a coincidence. This seemingly simple Wikipedia disambiguation page is actually a powerful testament to humanity's universal fascination with boundaries.
It highlights our collective obsession with breaking points, with the thrill of losing control, and with the courage, or sometimes the madness, required to step off the precipice and into the unknown.
No matter the medium, no matter the decade, and no matter the geography, we are inexplicably drawn to the edge.
It is a phenomenal way to look at something we usually just scroll right past. It makes you wonder how many other common phrases carry this much cultural weight.
It certainly changes how you view everyday language. And it leaves me with the lingering thought.
What's that?
We've seen how thoroughly the phrase over the edge has defined our media's fascination with pushing past boundaries for the last half-century. But language evolves as society evolves, and our boundaries are constantly shifting. So if we keep pushing, if we keep exploring, what new phrase will our culture adopt when there are no more edges left to cross?
That is a profound thought to carry with you today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We appreciate you spending your time with us, looking past the obvious and exploring the hidden corners of the things we take for granted. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and we will catch you on the next deep dive. Take care.